Hey everyone, welcome to Acrylic Painting Basics, how to get paint on your palette, use of the palette knife, and how to hold and load those paint brushes. And by loading, no, I do not mean taking them to a bar and giving them drinks. Hey everybody, welcome to Caliente Art Studios. I'm Rob, I'm one of the artists on this channel. Let's get started. You can see I've already got some paint on some palette paper. So real quick, the way I like to get paint on my paper is grab my tube, squeeze out a blob, and then wipe the edge of the tube off. Helps keep the end of the tube a little bit cleaner. Today we got some carbon black, some naphtha red medium, titanium white, Jenkins green, and French ultramarine blue. Okay, first up, how to hold your brush. We're going to start with our 3/4 inch flat brush. Now, you can hold your brush just like a pen. It's that simple. Keep in mind though that sometimes you'll be working up and down, sometimes you'll be working at an angle. It doesn't really matter. You can hold it just like a pencil. We'll get into another hold later on with a different brush. But for right now, moving on with the flat brush. First thing you do with acrylic paints, you dip your paint and you dip your brush in water. Wipe the excess water off and then loading the brush. Now by loading the brush, all we're talking about is, hey, we're gonna put some paint on this paintbrush so we can paint something with it. Now with your large flats, just pull it through the paint. Flip it over, pull the other side. You can see I got a fairly decent amount of paint on there. Not a whole lot, it doesn't really take a lot. And with this large flat, I can now just do a simple X and work my way across and then pull the paint back and forth. Just to give us a little bit of a blue sky up here. We'll just grab a little bit more and do the same thing. Throw some X's down, pull the paint back and forth. Now the other thing you can do with your large flats, I'm going to just clean that brush off real quick and pull just a touch of black onto the end of this. Is pull it straight down so that we get a nice line. Pretty simple. Now our next loading technique for this brush, and I'm just trying to make sure my brush is nice and somewhat dry. Give it its shape back a little bit, is dabbing. No, not where we like squat down and point off to the side. I'm gonna use my palette knife to take some of this green and spread it out. I'm gonna take my brush, I'm gonna just dab it straight down in the paint. That way the only thing getting paint is the very tip of this brush. Now with that, I can come back in here and use just the corner of the brush and just dab it. Then start using the full brush. Pick up a little more paint. And all I'm doing is just tapping. That's it. I'm tapping paint onto the brush. I'm tapping the paint right back onto the canvas. And we've got ourselves a little bit of a tree going. That is your 3/4 inch flat brush and a couple of different things you can do with it. All right, moving on. We've got our 1/2 inch flat. 1/2 inch flat, you can do the same exact thing you can with the 3/4 inch. It's just smaller, so it's easier to do finer detail. Same thing with the foliage and everything else. You can just tap it right in. Again, holding the brush just like a pen and doing what you need to. Moving on, we have my go-to brush. This here is a 3/8 inch angle shader. And I really like this brush. This has got to be one of my more favorite brushes. Just like all of our brushes, we're going to dab it wet, wipe off the excess, And I want to just kind of make sure I got a nice chiseled tip on the end of that. Again, using the flat part of the paint that's pulled out and not sticking it in that blob, all I'm going to do is just barely do an angle on this through the paint. That way I'm loading up just a tiny little paint right on the edge of that brush. Now I can come back in and just do a series of little lines like this. What is this good for? Why are we doing lines? Hey, cool, I can't paint a straight line. Well, you know what? Nature isn't straight. And that's all right. Now using this angle brush, I'm going to flip it over and use just that tip. And again, just like we did with the large flat, I'm just going to tap in. And then as I get towards the bottom, I'll use the full brush. Load that guy back up. And just tap that in. And rotate the brush as I go up so I can make the tops a little bit thinner. And there we go. We have some trees in the distance. That is your angle shader. Now the other fun thing you can do with this brush, I'm going to really load this guy up just like we did with the big flat. Just get a big nice roll of paint on there. Be like, hey, you know what, forest is cool, but come on, man. How about something a little bit more tropical? I can start off smooth and then rotate the brush to just get a nice tapered tree trunk coming up. And then using that same brush, I'll come back in there with the black and just throw some branches on. And as we get a little bit closer, I'm going to go back to just trying to get a nice roll of paint right on the edge of that. And just barely touching the page. I'm going to just drag that brush through and give us a little bit of a palm tree here going on at the front. Now you can see that, hey, you know what? I don't spend enough time looking at palm trees. These two sides, they look a little bit strange. That's okay. It's my world. They can look strange. Grab some green and just go back over them. And just like that, we've made a big mess. Now, that's cool. We got a black tree. We have an angle shader. What else can we do with this bad boy? Well, we can load up one side with red, load the other side up with white, and I'm just going to tap and pull. The white is the side that's towards the painting, so it'll be the primary color, but as you can see, we're getting a little bit of that red coming through. And this can give us a nice easy way to just add a bunch of color or two colors and not really have to jump back and forth between brushes. Now along that same line, we're going to flip over to the oval brush. This is a number 2 oval. Same thing though, same concept as what we just did with the angle shader is we can load up one side, and I really need to pull that paint out. We can load up the one side with white, and then we'll flip the brush over. We'll load the other side up with red. So we got nice red on one side, white on the other. Now what can we do with this? We can make flowers. So if we want the primary color to be white, we go white side down and just kind of press that in. And now we've got these cool little red flowers with dabs of white right in the middle of them. This is the technique I primarily use when I'm doing cherry blossom trees. Now, we talked about one more grip, right? We said, hey, we got this pencil grip, which is what you guys have been seeing me using. What's the other grip that we can do? This is where I use the angle, or the oval brush for, is when I just want like randomness. I don't want to be painting lines or anything else. I'm gonna load this brush up with just some white. I'm gonna hold the brush way out here. So there's no way I can have any type of fine control on it, and just kind of tap in. And I'll roll the brush over. And what's fun, just twist the brush as you're doing this. And by twisting that brush, we're not making any straight lines. By holding it way out here, we have absolutely no fine control at all whatsoever. And it gives us a nice random painting, or a nice random look. And by just going over this again and again, and wiping my brush off in between, I can just build up a nice little cloud up here. And that is your oval brush, along with the absolutely no control over the brush at all whatsoever hold. All right, the last brush we're gonna cover real quick is our round. This is a number 0 round. Again, like all of our other brushes, we're gonna dip that in some water, wipe the excess off. Rounds you can use for a lot of fine detail. You can use it to just scrub in some color, but where I end up using rounds and or a script liner is I'll take some water, and what should we use? We'll use a little bit of green. I'm just spraying a little bit of water on my palette, so I have this big puddle of water right here. I'm gonna grab some of that paint and mix it into that water so that this is really loose, it's really sloppy. Now that I've got some paint loaded up on that, I'm going to twist that brush as I drag it across my palette so I have just a teeny bit of water on there. What this allows me to do is plan out a painting now. I can say, okay, you know what? I'm going to have a mountain like this. It'll come down. There's going to be a valley. I have another mountain coming up like that. I may even have some type of river flowing out this way. I'm gonna actually use a little bit more paint than water to make sure this shows up. I'm gonna have, maybe a river coming out this way. What's great is that you can actually lay out an entire painting doing this, and anything you don't like, you can just take a towel and it will really lighten up and or wipe off. If it's not wiping off, just a little bit of water, and this comes right up. With it being so light because of the water, you're gonna be able to paint right over this. Nobody will ever know that the marks were there. And with that, that's all of our brushes. So, question of the day. Hey, if you wanna learn, what brush did I not cover that you wanna see covered in a future video? That's your question of the day. Put it in the comments below and let me know. Thank you all for watching. There'll be stuff in the description on different paints that I've used, the brushes, all that good things. And hey, if you like this content and you want to see more, please subscribe.